This week's heat comes from the one and only Thierry Henry, who returned to New York Red Bulls after an unforgettable 2 months on loan back at Arsenal. The legendary French striker officially rejoined Arsenal back in January, making his debut against Leeds United in the FA Cup. And he put in the kind of performance that will go down in history. After netting again against Blackburn in the Gunners' 7-1 rout, he then came off the bench against Sunderland in the Premier League and scored what could be one of the most vital goals in Arsenal's season. The return of the King, a legend rewritten. Thierry Henry, you're what's hot this week. For a day in time, we're looking back at the Arsenal story to examine some of the moments that altered the history of the club. Today we're going back to the 27th of April, 1935, when the Gunners completed a hat-trick of league titles. After the tragic death in 1934 of Herbert Chapman, the man who had revolutionised Arsenal Football Club into the dominant force in English football, George Allison went on to manage the team. Come the end of the 34-35 season, the club stood on the verge of a third consecutive league title.
We're all looking forward most eagerly and in the keenest anticipation to the forthcoming season. As league champions, we have the highest standard of football to maintain, and I sincerely hope and trust and believe we will maintain it.
With Sunderland hot on their heels in the league, the club travelled away to Leicester City for the penultimate game of the season, knowing one final push would see them into the history books. Arsenal continued to honour the attacking flair that the late Chapman had instilled in them as they put 5 past the Foxes to win 5-3. The result sealed a third consecutive league title, something that has only been done once before and once since. And it gave the 27th of April 1935 its very own place in history. Last week we began to tell the story of Arsenal great Lee Dixon. From a youngster at Stoke, the tenacious defender moved to Arsenal and made his mark winning trophies under manager George Graham. When the Scotsman departed in 1995, Bruce Rioch stepped in to guide the club, and his first piece of business was perhaps his finest.
My friend of mine sent me a text or phone call, or I read it in the paper or something, that said Arsenal signed Dennis Bergkamp, and I was like, that can't be Dennis Bergkamp. Is there 2 Dennis Bergkamps? And it was like, oh, we've signed Dennis Bergkamp, and I was like, wow, because I knew I'd seen him quite a lot on the TV and I knew he was special. But until you actually train and play with somebody like that, you've got no idea on how good a footballer he is. And you do get better by playing with better players, there's no doubt about that. So it can only be a good thing to be in the environment that Dennis is in. So you know, I didn't mind playing against him in training, or you know, I was never fearful of that because I knew that he'd probably beat me every time he gets the ball, but there would be one day when I'd get the ball off him, and that would be, you know, go in my scrapbook, got the ball off Dennis.
While Dennis was a hit, Rioch was not. After one season, the manager was replaced by a surprise candidate, little-known Frenchman, Arsene Wenger.
It was a shock, you know, it was Arsene who I'd literally never heard of him. You know, it was like, where's he manage? How's this guy going to inspire us into, you know, little did we know what was behind those glasses and those elbow pads. And, you know, he from day one he changed a lot of things, and they all seemed like they were for the better. And the results he got from in such a short space of time is reflecting on how well he was accepted into the club by the players.
With the new manager came a host of new philosophies that were embraced by the playing group and helped them reach their potential.
We took it all on board, we listened to his advice, we did his stretching, we ate his food, we played in a way that was, we were released from the shackles a bit. You know, he didn't suddenly turn me into a more composed, sort of more skillful player than I was before. He just released me in a way that you'd say, right, that's like, you played with a lot more freedom, and I was allowed to express myself a little bit more. But that, and that's what he did to everybody.
On course to win the 97-98 title, the Gunners had started to slide. Their form was patchy in the early stages, and a 3-1 defeat at home to Blackburn was the wake-up call that helped propel them to the title.
You talk about the United game being the turning point, but that Blackburn game was a little bit of a slap on the legs and a right, come on then. So I think a few of us sort of looked round and said, right, we've really got to pick up and start to show what we're made of. And I think from then on we went 18 games undefeated with 10 wins on the trot at the end to win the league.
And here's Steve Bold, and it's Adams, put through by Bold. Would you believe it? That sums it all up.
It was just a matter of time before we won something and be a little bit dominant for a few years, because everything was clicking together. His training methods, his everything, his ideals we were taking on board. There was a team spirit, there was a camaraderie between the English lads and the French lads, but a healthy one. And it was just, we seemed very powerful as a unit to actually go, we're going to take some teams on now, we can really push on. I think we already kind of knew something was going to happen before it did.
At the end of the 01-02 season, the Gunners travelled to the home of their rivals, knowing that a win would take the title back from their champion hosts.
I didn't think I was playing because Lauren had played quite a lot that season, and I'd been in and out, and my knee wasn't great, and I to be honest with you, I could have played that night, but I couldn't have played a run of 5 or 6 games on the trot because my knee wouldn't have held out. So I played the odd game, and then I was named on the bench, and all I wanted to do was win the game and get on the pitch. So he put me on at midfield, and I didn't even touch the ball, not once. Ray went through on the left and Barthez came out, and if he'd have squared it, I'd have had an open goal and put it in, we'd have won 2-0. But Ray didn't see me all them years together, and he didn't see me. To score at Old Trafford like that would have been, probably wouldn't have got out of Manchester alive.
By this time, Dixon already knew that this would be his final season. At the end of the campaign, along with Tony Adams, Dixon called time on a career that spanned 15 years and 619 appearances. His contribution was later recognised as his image was chosen as one of 30 to grace the outside of Emirates Stadium.
It means everything, and I feel quite emotional. That to me is worth all the medals I've got. To actually to see me up there is like, I'll give you all my medals now, because that was, when I found out about that, I said to Nigel, because Nigel's up there as well, I said, we got up on that wall, it's like amazing. It's when you see things like that you actually remember that what you've achieved for the club, and how great it was to play for the club, and the other people, the people who decide on putting me up on that wall have been appreciative of those efforts. And people say to me, oh, thanks for all the years and the pleasure you give me, and I always say, my reply to that is, I had more fun than you. It's like, in that respect, I loved it, so you don't have to thank me. I did it, I would have done it for nothing.